See the moonlights on the town. Whoa, I'm getting ready. Tallawah TV is in the town. Whoa, I'm getting ready. Got a corner on the telephone. Yeah, this is the Ocean of the Messenger, and you're watching Tallawah TV with the host and best. So, Davis, take it away.
My Tallawahs, how are you all? Good morning, good afternoon, or perhaps good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Today, obviously, you've seen the title, the headline. The title is Paul Hall and Vin Blaine's press conference review. I'm pretty sure by now you've had the chance to watch or hear analysis on Mr. Paul Hall and Mr. Vin Blaine's press conference. They've both completed their first official press conferences as the interim coaches for the Reggae Boyz and the Reggae Girlz as well. So, now that that has been said, by the way, if you've not had the chance to look at Vin Blaine's press conference, do go onto my channel. I did upload that last night, so you will get a chance to watch the full press conference with all the important questions. I'm trying to get to the heart of the matter and review both press conferences respectfully, trying to find the right formula, trying to figure out the right formula that these guys, these two head coaches, are trying to present to us for the long term future, the growth and development of the men's and the women's senior sides and grassroots as well. And guys, you heard what I said. I said formula. Now, you know, if I'm talking about formula, there's only one man that I can call upon, right? I'm pretty sure you are familiar with his face. It is none other than Mr. Formula himself. Mr. Formula Sports, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Crystal. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated, man. What an introduction, man. I'm a superstar.
I might have said this to you on one of your lives before. You are exactly that, exactly that. A pleasing content creator, guys. If you're new to my channel and you're just coming across Formula Sports, please do head over to Formula Sports, the Formula Sports, I should say, on Instagram or on YouTube. YouTube is where he distributes his main content, and that content is around all things football with a particular strong focus on the Reggae Boys. So do take him in, a knowledgeable content creator, and he's quite pleasing to listen to, the type of person that you can stick on the telly and perhaps just lay back in your bed and just get on with your day and just take him in. Loads of knowledge and smart bite-sized nuggets that come from the Formula Sport. So thank you so much again for blessing me with your time.
Yeah, man, it's an absolute pleasure, man. I think this is the first time I'm being on your channel. So, again, man, thanks much.
No problem. Thank you for stopping by. So, like I said, Formula, I want to get to the heart of what's been said with Mr. Paul Hall and Mr. Vin Blaine's press conferences, trying to figure out the formula that these guys are trying to bring to the table, trying to implement, trying to put into practice. First and foremost, what did you make before we dissect the conversations? What did you make of the press conferences so far? Because for me, this has probably been the best press conferences that have been a part of so far.
I mean, I think both press conferences were good. Um, I think especially Paul Hall's press conference. I don't know why it surprised me, but it did. I know that he's good with the media. I've watched interviews with him previously, so I know he's good with the media. But I think, especially, I think the contrast is more evident between, with the greatest of the contrast is more evident between the past and the present, where press conferences are concerned with Paul Hall, versus with Vin Blaine and Mr. Busby. So yeah, I think it was especially I mean, both press conferences were good, but Paul Hall's press conference was very refreshing for me personally.
I don't think anyone can knock you there when you're quite right to bring up the two comparisons between the past and the present with Tapa and Busby as well, and you compare them to what you can say is their successor, whether that's going to be short term or long term. That's a completely different conversation, but there is a clear difference there. I think with Paul and Blaine, They are articulate, they are clear, and they seem to be willing to offer transparency as well. What do you make of that?
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, so far so good. Both seem like gentlemen who will be very inclined to interact with the media and open up with the media. So I think that's very good. I mean, I'm looking forward to, you know, hearing a lot more from, both gentlemen for sure.
Now, Formula, you would know, just like so many of us, there have been times where we have put the spotlight on the Jamaica Football Federation, and more often than anything, when the spotlight is on them, it's not usually something positive. It tends to lean towards the negative side. But I think it's pretty safe to say that you could perhaps give them a round of applause for the manner in which they have transitioned from two previous head coaches to the new interim head coaches for the time being. It looks like a smooth transitional process. And the reason why I've said that is they've made the announcement with regards to Paul Hall and Vin Blaine. And then within a matter of days, we have not one, but two press conferences. Before, if you look back in the past, that's kind of unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, it's crazy that we're commending the JFF for a press conference, right? I think normally when they're introducing, new coaches, they do have press conferences, but I think we're grateful for the press conferences because it's very rare that we see press conferences from the JFF, right? I mean, on matters of urgent importance, the media doesn't have access to who we need to have access to. So, yes, they do normally do press conferences when introducing a new manager, but we're grateful for it and we're happy for it, and it's kind of like a surprise when we hear a JFF press conference, so to speak. But yeah, man, and the transition. I mean, the process in terms of replacement. By the way, is Busby like 100% gone? Is he fired or is he just on leave?
Well, what they have said is that he is suspended, and he's going through the investigation. And that's an interesting question because based off how Vin Blaine delivered himself in that press conference and the stuff that he said, and it all seems like long-term planning. It
Yeah,
does not seem like he's going to be here just for the duration of the World Cup period and then hand it back over to whoever. He seems like he's here now, today, and for the next World Cup cycle as well.
I was listening to the press conference and I'm like, I thought Busby was on leave. Like, oh, this a brother has sound like him permanent. Yeah, no, I picked it up during the press conference. I was wondering if, something had happened and it had passed over my head. But I
No,
think,
sorry to cut you off. Nothing passed over your head. I think we're both on the same lines. If Busby wasn't looking for a job before, he perhaps needs to go and start looking for a job and brushing up on his CV because
that's
Vin Blaine, the way he delivered himself in that
yeah,
press
yeah.
conference, he's here for the long
He's
term.
here
So
to
if
stay.
he's here to Vin Blaine is here to stay. So Busby, if you weren't aware of that now, you perhaps should start looking for a new job because it doesn't look like you're going to pull someone out of their position who pretty much have cement around their feet.
Yeah, yeah. But the only thing I have an issue with the transition is it kind of, I mean, on the one side, you have to give the JFF props, I guess they were doing their due diligence, and taking their time and not rushing things. Um, it did appear that there was no plan in place, you know, to act upon immediately. If this, especially, I mean, I can understand with the girls because that kind of came out of nowhere, even though you still have to have a contingency plan in place. But with the boys, I mean, God, man, we saw it coming for quite some time that we were going to need to replace the head coach. So I don't know why there wasn't an immediate contingency plan in place to act upon because it was quite a delay in terms of between, the whole process took quite some time. So that I mean, I don't want to knock them too hard for it, but it's not consistent with what I see taking place, in other bodies or other jurisdictions. in terms of the length of time.
No, you're absolutely spot on about that. They have a habit, a tendency of just not acting with any real urgency. Like you said, people knew from maybe perhaps some weeks ago that Tapper would be removed or relieved of his duties, and then JFF just took their precious time with the announcement. So when I say smooth transition, I'm talking about from the moment they announced Paul Hall and Vin
Okay.
Blaine to
Mm.
the press
Yeah,
conferences
yeah,
itself.
true,
That
true,
seemed very smooth. Like I've not
true.
seen that before, and I was just like, oh wow, this is quite impressive. Whether
Yeah,
that was on
yeah.
the demand of Paul Hall and Vin Blaine, that's a completely different story, and we're gonna get into that because I think with Vin Blaine and with Paul Hall, JFF have put themselves are now in a position where they've got two head coaches who will make their lives and their jobs much easier. This is why I'm saying that anybody who think that they're going to come in and take over from Paul Hall or Vin Blaine, you perhaps need to seek an alternative job because at the moment it's not looking good for them. It's looking good for Paul Hall and Vin Blaine though.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, well, I don't know if you know what's the situation with Vin. We're only speculating, but with Paul Hall, it has been indicated that there is a long-term role in place. As a matter of fact, they actually said it's contractual. It's like it's in the contractual arrangement. I don't know what shape that will take, what form that will take, but they have indicated. So he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be around for a little time.
Yeah, I suspect that as well. By the way, Formula, can you hear my fan by any chance?
It's not a big deal. I didn't notice it until you said it.
Really? So
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
good,
Is
man.
you sure?
Yeah, man, it's all right, man.
All
True,
right.
because if it's just because you mentioned it, you brought it to my attention, and I started listening keenly.
Okay, but you can
Really
hear me
hear it.
clearly then, right?
Yeah, man, sure.
All right then. Brilliant. Yeah, so just moving along, I think it's a good idea to look at these two head coaches because like I said to you before, it's pretty much almost like for like in terms of the message that they were trying to deliver or the message that they delivered in both of their separate press conferences. I don't know what were some of the key takeaways that you took away particularly from the Paul Hall press conference.
Just a change in tone, so to speak. Just I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing anybody, but I think basically from a communication standpoint, it was just an upgrade. I think anybody with common sense can see that. A lot, you know, over the years, you hear a little thing here and you hear a little thing there from Theodore Tapper Whitmore in terms of how he wants to play. Right? With Paul Hall, I think in that particular press conference, it was made very clear. This is how I want to play. And the way we articulated that to the media and to the Jamaican massive, you could just sit down and just imagine it going through your head as to, in terms of how we articulated how, it might look on the pitch, right? So, and just the tone, right? The tone, the underlying tone of the press conference was just, it was just different. It was, I remember we were on the live with coach's desk, and we were just talking about how it was just a breath of fresh air, right? It was just different, right? I mean, the I mean, just everything about it was just was different, and just really good. I think he answered the one thing I was really impressed about. He answered the questions were almost perfect. The answers rather were almost perfect answers, right? Sharp contrast to what we have seen previously, where the previous manager didn't seem to really be that comfortable in front of the media. So
No, I think I definitely agree with you there where you touched on communication. Like I said, this is something that they both clearly have in common. They communicate quite clearly. They're trying to, I think what they're trying to do is try to be as transparent as possible, but at the very same time, there is that obvious shield there. I think you could see the shield more clearly with Vin Blaine than with Paul Hall, and that shield is trying to protect the overall asset. The overall asset includes the Jamaica Football Federation, the entire coaching staff, and the girls as well, with a heavy, heavy focus on the girls. And I think with the both of them, what they gave you is a realistic and meaningful purpose of what they're about going forward. If you look at Paul Hall and Vin Blaine, when they touched on the team, paraphrasing, Paul Hall said, "We have a group of players who can respond to pressure and really make it difficult for teams to play in Jamaica." And I thought that was quite telling. And Vin Blaine said something slightly different, but it's kind of along the same lines of Paul Hall. He said, "What I've recognized is that defensively we don't have bad players, but our organization is poor. We weren't playing defensively well. Looking ahead, he touched on wanting to play with touching on brushing up on our speed of play and reading the game. So clearly this is too forward thinking from Paul Hall and Vin Blaine as well."
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I stated this on your live last night. The Vin Blaine comment, I had a little bit of an issue with it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, especially in his situation, Busby has not been, ties have not been completely severed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it was a little bit out of order to go down that route of, you know, any public criticism of the previous regime, right? Especially one who you're supposed to the public knowledge anyway is supposed to be it's supposed to be temporary, right? So that I thought it was a little bit unprofessional. I was a little bit taken aback by that response. But with what Paul Hall said, yeah, I mean, I agree. I thought that he did a very good job, Paul Hall, of lighting a spark, so to speak, in terms of being fair to the players, but also, letting them know that the levels have to improve, right? So I think he did a very good job in terms of striking that balance and not
I
wanting to throw them under the bus either.
Absolutely. I see. I'm going to backtrack and touch on Vin Blaine's comment. And like you said, you touched on Vin Blaine's comments around Busby in the premiere video that I put out last night of the press conference. And I definitely get where you're coming from. I don't disagree with it. But do you think the reason why he has perhaps criticized Hubert Busby and Paul Hall hasn't criticized Tapper is because of that relationship? Obviously, Tapper and Paul Hall, they've gone from being teammates to being friends on and off the field of play. So you don't expect him to, dare I say, throw his friend, his former colleague, under the bus. Likewise, with Vin Blaine, later on in the press conference, he did actually give credit to Busby and said that, he did a good job in bringing in the players. And what he needs to do now is he needs to bring his own personality to it and push forward and see what he can get out of the team.
No, I think you have a very good point. It's understandable because you could see that Paul Hall really and truly was going out of his way to, not speak ill of Theodore Tapper Whitmore. I think it's a combination of two things, though. I think it's a combination of friendship, and I also think it's a combination of Paul Hall, if I'm not mistaken, um, has been has been trained at the tertiary level in terms of journalism or something. So he has some degree, some background where that is concerned.
Journalism, yeah.
So
Media trained.
exactly. So I think it's a combination of friendship and professionalism, right? Even if you don't know Busby, like say in the press conference that for me personally, I want to focus on defense or focus on improving the defense. Even if he had said that, more than really. have a take issue with it. You could have just read between the lines and know, say, you know, yes, he thinks that under the previous regime the defense needed to improve, but he never actually said it. To actually make that criticism against the previous regime, the way how he did, I thought he erred where that was concerned.
I find it, I'm actually laughing because we've been screaming out for transparency for so long that we're now in a position where we're saying, give us the transparency, give us the transparency, give us the truth, but at the same time, balance it out a bit because, like I said, I'm not disagreeing with your point. I definitely get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I can measure up and compare why Paul Hall speaks the way he does about Tapper and why Vin Blaine speaks the way he does about Busby as well. So yeah, moving forward, like I said, with those press conferences, those two separate press conferences, I felt that they gave us a glimpse of realistic purposes separate to what they're trying to achieve. If you look at Paul Hall at one point in his press conference, he said that he wants to make Jamaica a fortress and a difficult place for people to come, as I recently touched on. And he said, and this is where he's touching on that realistic purpose. Yes, people have always said that Jamaica have players who are capable of beating any team in the CONCACAF region because of the quality that these players possess. But Rome wasn't built in a day, so it would be foolish of us to say that Paul Hall is going to come in and just sweep us away. He actually said in his press conference, he said, nobody jumps a flight of stairs in one bound. We have to prepare for the Mexico match right now, attack each game as it is one game. Vin Blaine says that I'm preparing for the next round because if I prepare them for the next round, then we'll do enough to get through the first round. And he's basically touching on the World Cup qualifiers. So both of them, to me, straight away, that's meaningful purpose because they're saying, right, I'm here to get the job done, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take this one step at a time.
Yeah, and I mean that's just the common sense way to approach it, right? Both are new in the position. I'm not the I'm not so 100% sure about Vin Blaine's record. I know of his time with Barbican in the
Hmm.
women's league where they were just running through the women's league. It was the Barbican league, right? It was crazy. Week in week out, it was like 12-0, 15-0. But so as he had national, I know he was like technical director before, but has he coached nationally before?
Locally, he has a strong relationship with the local players. That's why in the press conference he said, he's comfortable with this team because he said something along the lines of, I think 70% of the girls that went to the 2019 World Cup was recruited by him. And
Mhm.
like I said, he has that relationship with the locally based players, so the likes of Khadija Shaw and Jodie Brown as well, because of the come up with those players.
Yeah, and so you see the thing is now both managers, while they have experience in football, they, from my understanding of it, from my knowledge, they don't really have you know, they're not seasoned head
Mhm.
coaches at the international level,
Mhm.
right? And
It's a
and I,
different level. It's a
yeah,
different level. And
yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but I think with both of them as well, they actually touched on that. They admitted that whilst they might be inexperienced at international level, they believe within themselves that they have the tools to utilize a formula that could get us to the qualify for the World Cup, or at least set the foundation for a decent building blocks.
Boy, believe in yourself right now in a crystal. And that. I mean, look, it's good to hear them express confidence, but they certainly have to, go about the business of proving to the nation, right, with matters on the pitch that they are competent, to do the job at this level. But yeah, I just think that the caution with them. I mean, I guess every manager would be cautious, would want to be cautiously optimistic, so to speak, and not try and drive expectations too high. So, probably I'm being a little bit unfair to them when I say it's probably the lack of experience at this level why they're being cautiously optimistic. But, probably not.
It's an interesting one. I think it's just one of those situations that you could only make a judgment on how well they're doing or how well they've done after the World Cup qualifying period concludes, because this is just going to be a new level of experience for both of them stepping into that international zone.
Yeah, I think though, I think for Blaine, I think which one would you say the pressure is more on? Vayne or Blaine or Hall?
I love that question. I love that question. I think the pressure is more on Paul Hall. Paul Hall has a mountain to climb, an absolute mountain to climb. I hope he's not afraid of heights. Whereas, whereas
Yeah,
Vin Blaine is there from the start. Vin
yeah,
Blaine is there from the
exactly,
start. So,
exactly.
and like he actually said that whilst he's not been included in the team, and he's not had a
Hmm.
hands-on approach, he's been watching from a distance. That's why he was able to say that defensively we're poor. There's no way you can tell us that straight away without actually watching the games. Whether that's he's I
He
can't
said
say that
he
he's
said that he watched every game. He
he
said
said
that.
that he
Yeah.
said that he's been watching the games, and I said I can't discredit you for that. I just have to take what you've said, because he could have easily come into this new position and then go and done his homework and watch the games, or like he said, he could have been watching from a distance, but nevertheless he has an idea of where our weak point is and areas that we need to polish. Paul Hall, on the other hand, he has 6 games to go. He's coming through at like midway point where, like I said, the mountain is there for him to climb. So I definitely think the pressure is more on Paul Hall, even though you could say it's unfair pressure, but I'm sure
Yeah.
he knows what he stepped into.
But that's what I was gonna ask, because one could argue, it's actually the other way around.
Mm,
Because for Paul Hall, he has a more unrealistic task,
mm-hmm,
right? With Vin Blaine on the other hand, he is starting out, from the very beginning. So, when I think about it, I probably think the pressure is more on Blaine
mm-hmm,
because while it might not, the pressure might not seem immediate, but the expectations are higher and more realistic. Whereas with Paul Hall, the pressure is more obviously more immediate. It's like right now, but
mm-hmm.
it's a case where I mean, I guess some people still have a hope, but I don't think anybody will hold it against him though if the
Yeah.
team doesn't qualify. I think the pressure that Hall is really under is to ensure that performance is improved. I
Yeah.
think that's
There
what
you go.
people,
Yeah.
even if we don't qualify, people at least want to see the team looking like the decent team that it is. I mean, don't want to, with the greatest of respect to the legend, God Almighty, the team was just dreadful under Theodore Tapper. It was a disgrace. The team looked dreadful. The performances were exceptionally poor. You would never believe in these qualifiers that we were arguably third or fourth, right? Even though we're sitting sixth in the table, in my humble opinion, I think we're the worst performing team out of all the teams because I think that if Honduras was if Honduras had somebody to really finish off the chances they were creating, I think they would probably be higher up the table than us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And
And I think El Salvador has played some decent football for the
yeah.
most part.
Yeah, and just going back to that pressure on Paul Hall as well. For me, he's definitely obviously in a completely different situation to Vin Blaine. But the reason why I'm saying the pressure is more on him is because he's in a messy situation. It's not just about taking it game by game. It's not just about doing the unthinkable or achieving the unthinkable and getting the boys to the World Cup. It's also trying to galvanize the nation, trying to galvanize that fan base, because the fan base is just completely divided. right? So
Yeah,
he's trying to
yeah.
see if he can bring the 12 man together. So that again, that's a job in itself, but that can only fix itself if results come our way. And I think he's slowly but surely trying to glue the fan base together based off, that first press conference, articulate, clear, delivering meaningful message, trying to come forth with a meaningful purpose and a long-term solution.
It
So there's
delivered hope
lots.
crystal.
Yeah, and also when you look at Vin Blaine, I think that the Reggae Girls fans are more unified than the Reggae Boys fans. I actually think that they get more love and more support. The Reggae Girls get more love and support. So I don't actually think that Vin Blaine has to worry about the support from the 12th man, because I've heard so
Good
many
point.
times where people say, you know what, I rather watch the Reggae Girls than the Reggae Boys because I know what I'm gonna get from the Reggae Girls. So that's one less problem for him to worry about. I know Vin Blaine said that we need everyone. He's saying, talking about the power of the 12th man. He touched on that. But that's not something that I personally feel that he needs to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And to add to your point as well, I think, and it's not ideal, it's just the reality of the matter. I think that have, I think the boys are more intensely followed than the girls, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't mean, I don't want to make it sound like, being sexist or anything like that. I'm just being real,
yeah,
right? I think that's just the reality of the situation. Unfortunately,
yeah,
even me myself, I need to improve, where, I mean, I follow them, but and honestly not as intensely as I do the boys, right? I
yeah,
do keep up to, try and keep up to date with what's taking place with the Reggae Girls, but I personally would admit I need to step up, where intensity of the following is concerned, right? I
yeah,
don't follow because even for instance, I watch a number of the Reggae Boys, playing for club. I mean, I'm watching Norman Campbell play for FK 𝗥𝗘𝗩𝗜𝗘𝗪 in Serbia, right? I'm watching Kahim Paris for FC Kappa. I'm watching Blair Turgott for Östersund in Sweden, right? I'm watching just some baller in some place around some part, right? I, I've rarely ever seen a Reggae Girls Club performance. Part of it is access too, you know. But I think that it a lot of it also has to do with the intensity and the quantity of the following that the Reggae Boys would have versus that of the Reggae Girls. That could make it seem as if there's more pressure on Paul Hall versus on Vin Blaine.
yeah. And also, I think it's probably only fair for us to touch on the alleged internal ups and downs within the Reggae Boys camps as well. And again, that's the reason why I'm leaning towards Paul Hall. Can he smoothen out any issues that may be there in camp, whether it's between one player or a next player? Obviously, you don't expect the players to come forth and say, XYZ. That's not going to happen. They have to protect their assets. They have to protect their team. So you shouldn't expect anything but from them. But there's always talks about stuff that's happening behind the scenes, and the big focus on Paul Hall, this is why I'm saying it's not just about results. A big
Yeah,
focus for him, a big challenge for him is team selection. People
yeah,
are looking and saying, is he going to be brave enough to not call up player X or player Z? Is he going to say that, look, if you do not have a club, you are not playing for me? Even if you do have a club, if you do not meet my criteria, if you're not at my level and my expectations, you are not playing for me. So that's why I said that pressure is on him straight away, and probably more so than Vin Blaine.
and if you're in the recording studio, you're not playing for me.
It's exactly like that. People might think and laugh, and but yeah, these are the things that it's
Yeah,
just like
yeah,
you
yeah,
come in. He's in a situation. Obviously, he's been there since summer, but now he's the man that's leading the ship. So
yeah.
he probably has to go there and cause an
True,
upset, whether
true.
that's intentional or unintentional. I don't want to be in his position. I do not want to be in his position because he could potentially, unintentionally, cause a few upsets here and there where selection of players are concerned. Are you going to give me your best, or is there going to be a problem if I don't select your best mate, and so on?
No, I think that's a solid point. I think that's a solid point. from the outside looking in, you I know will definitely more than likely have more info on this than me. But from the outside looking in, it does appear as if the Reggae Girls are a much more unified bunch. They seem very humble. I've watched interviews with some of the girls, Marlo, Khadija, Tiffany in Hungary, right? I've watched interview with some of the girls, and they I think I've watched interviews with Alison in Roma as well, and they seem very very humble, right? They seem to be, this is about the cause, this is about Jamaica, there's no, it seems selfless. It seems not as if it's individual glory, but it's, for the team and for the country. Whereas I think with the boys now, yes, it's for individual country. You know, um, yes, it's for country, and yes, it's. I don't want to say, the boys are the complete contrast to what I just said about the girls, but I think there's a touch of ego with the boys, and that's with the greatest of respect to them. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's just, how I genuinely see things, right? I think there is a stroke of ego when it comes and also this long-standing issue. And honestly, I'm wondering if the interview with Rene Simons that coach did might have gave us an indication as to the origin of this issue in terms of between local and overseas, when Rene spoke about that Channel 4 documentary that aired, right before the World Cup, that would have caused divisions, right? A certain player said a certain thing. But so yeah, that's a solid point. There's a lot more issues at play, where I don't want to say player relations, but just with the whole Reggae Boys camp, there's a lot more issues at play than with the girls. That's true.
I think yeah, I don't see many disagreeing with what you've said respectively with the comparison between the women's team and the men's team. I think with the women's team, visibly you can see that instant unity, and you could see that dating back from the World Cup, from the last World Cup leading up to the qualifiers, and also at in France as well in 2019. You could feel that connection. If you had the pleasure of being around the girls, you can feel like that positive vibration. I've not had the pleasure of being around the men's team like that, so I can't really judge their chemistry. What you see on screen might be different to what you see off the field of play. But with the Reggae Girls, I can say that whatever you see, that chemistry that you see on the field of play, you also see it off it as well. So the way they maneuver around each other when they're in camp, and I got the pleasure of seeing all of this when they came over to London, when they did their London send off, when they were up in Nottingham, when they played against the Nottingham women's football team. You could see it, and it's almost like it's in the DNA, because the women's football team that came over in I believe it was 2018, October 2018, that was not the first team. It was a senior set of players, the first time that they've ever took a trip to Europe, but that was not the senior team. It was far from the senior team, but you could still see that chemistry. You could still see that DNA. But yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think the obvious difference between the chemistry that you're talking about and perhaps the ego that you touched on is, I think that's a, dare I say, is what you get with men's football in comparisons to women's football. That's just what it is, you know.
Now, but you know what's so crazy though, Crystal? Sorry to cut you, but you know what? So that's why we need to do away with stereotypes,
Yeah,
because many if you go strictly off stereotypes,
yeah,
you know, without being exposed to men's and women's football, just going off
exactly.
stereotypes, you think it was the other way around.
And that's what I get. And I see it as well sometimes when I go to like Premier League grounds, and you're trying to talk to player X or player Z, and the ego is there. The ego is definitely there. But when you branch off into women's football, it's just like, oh whoa, it's different. Don't get me wrong, not all women's female players are like that, because you will get a few female players who do have that obvious ego, that open ego, and you probably have to, like, speak to them from a distance. But yeah, with the Reggae Girlz, it seemed more inclusive, a bit more approachable. Again, I've not had the pleasure of being around the Reggae Boyz, but yeah, I think that is the obvious difference. I think the only time that I was around them when they played against USA, that was the only time I was like around them, but that wasn't even for an hour. So it's difficult to actually judge what they're like as a collective.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think though, from the outside looking in, it does appear as if things are improving in the Reggae Boys camp. From what
Yes.
we were hearing and seeing, it seemed like a rocky start, but I think
Yeah.
things are coming around. So that's
Yeah.
good. And I think Paul Hall, he Paul Hall strikes me as somebody who is very emotionally intelligent. He has a high emotional IQ, right? I think they call it EQ. I think that's what they call it. I don't remember if that's what they call it, but he strikes me as somebody with emotional intelligence, and not to bash the previous, but I think there is an upgrade where that is concerned. So I think Paul Hall's leadership will, better bring everybody together. I mean, common sense tells me that, based on, just the interactions I've seen him, have with the media and how he speaks and how he carries himself. He strikes me as the type of person who would be firm but fair and approachable. Firm but fair and approachable.
I like the way you've ended that, because I think that ties me beautifully into my next question. Oh, I should ask you, what was your observation of Paul Hall and um Vin Blaine in relation to how they view the JFF, the Jamaica Football Federation, and what do you expect to get from them? Because I think I asked a question to Vin Blaine about mending the transparency between the JFF and the girls. Obviously, I asked him that because, like I said to him in the press conference, this year and in previous years, we've been told that, the girls are going to have a training camp, and somewhere down the line, nothing more is said, training camps get cancelled, and then the girls are left in the dark. But he actually took it upon himself to say that,
Yeah.
he wants it to go for a one route tunnel, just one voice, speak for everyone, and so on. So he seems like he wants to be like that middleman between the federation and the girls. And whatever conversation he has with the federation, he then goes back and speaks to the girls, so that he avoids gray areas. And with that, I'm thinking you're putting yourself in the firing line then, as you should, because you're the head coach. But he seems like he's more than willing, more than capable of drumming up those difficult conversation with the federation.
That sounds to me like a man who has been keenly, surveying the landscape, so to speak, or, a man who, was watching closely and intensely from afar, right? He seems to have his finger on the pulse, where that is concerned, and just knowing, fully well what he's getting himself into and what part of the job will entail. So, just being proactive where that is concerned, and just making it known from day one that, this will be a part of my remit for sure.
Definitely. What's been the one thing that's excited you the most with both of these press conferences?
Honestly though, I'm not really excited. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not really excited about the removal of Busby. What, don't get me wrong, he should go. There's no doubt about that, given the seriousness of the. I shouldn't say he should go. I'm of the firm belief that they should, await the make it run its course, in terms of, let him be, tried and weighed in the balance, so to speak. If he's innocent, that's the thing though. It's such a sticky situation, because even if he's, found to be innocent, or, you know even if the investigations conclude and there has been nothing found wrong, right? Will he still have the trust of the girls? But I was just saying that to say that, I'm from a performance and on the field standpoint, it would have been good if Busby didn't get himself in a spot of bother. In terms of, not that it has been revealed, but it would have been good that he did not. I don't want to say that either because I don't want to make it seem like I am making him out to be guilty. But it's just good. It would have been good if this issue did not arise, no allegations, no alleged behavior, etc., etc. So,
Mm.
because the Reggae Girls program was really going in a good direction, right? I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying that any issue should be swept under the floor or anything like that. I'm just saying that it would have been good if there was no allegation and, most importantly, no alleged misbehavior, right? So I'm not too upbeat about the change in coach where that is concerned. Good press conference, but not too upbeat about the change of coach. But with the boys now, you know, I think the press conference was just amazing. It the press conference was what a press conference should be. But I think because of what we have been exposed to prior, it was just worlds apart. So it was just like, whoa, this is amazing. When really and truly it's just standard. But I think, Paul Hall dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, hit all the nails on their respective heads, and just, delivered a very good press conference. I was very upbeat by Paul Hall's press conference. His press conference gave me hope. I will say that it gave me hope.
Touching on Hubert Busby, I think for me it was definitely the right call, and the reason why I said it, I think I did a live stream when the whole allegations was brought to light, and I said, immediately the
He needs to
JFF,
go.
immediately you have to suspend him
Oh,
because of that.
suspension. Okay.
Yes, and that's what they've done. They've taken the decision to suspend him, and I said immediately you have to suspend him because of the nature of the allegations, whether he's innocent or guilty.
True.
That's something that obviously needs to be investigated. But
Yeah.
bearing in mind that he's coaching young girls and women, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
nature
True.
of what he's been accused of, I personally feel like you have no other decisions but to suspend him. And also, if you flip the script a bit, and if it was one of the players, whether that be one of the male players from the senior side or one of the female players that was accused of soliciting whoever for
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
sex, then
It
the
was
same thing would have
disturbing
to be done.
allegations. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a disturbing allegation, so you
I
kind of,
was reading it, Crystal, and I cringed. I was like,
it's
damn.
disturbing. And I was just thinking to myself, I was just like, no,
It
not
was very detailed to Crystal. That
that
that's
was the
that's what the
problem. That
concerning
was the
part.
problem.
Yeah.
And like I said, yes, you will have some people that will say, but he's not guilty. Why
Don't get me
should
wrong, though, Sorry to cut you, Crystal,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
all for him being suspended, Don't get me
yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
100% on board with him being suspended, right? That I have no issue with. That's the right call, right? But what I was just saying is that, you know, we'll see where the investigations go, and not only the conclusions, but also where where the chips fall, so to speak.
Mhm,
and
mhm.
and wherever the chips fall, and however all the respective stakeholders feel about what
Yeah,
has gone on, both with the allegations and the investigation, etc., etc. Whatever this, if the decision is to, get rid of him, while it would be understandable and I wouldn't have any issues with it, the
yeah.
whole thing is just unfortunate. Not from the standpoint of the victim shouldn't get some amount of, I don't want to say justice. Justice is the wrong word, because you can't really, firing him won't really give them that justice. But, just from the perspective of the Reggae Girls program was going in a positive direction.
Yeah, yeah, I think and just to backtrack, not necessarily you per se, but I've had people, whether that be in the comment section, say stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah, okay.
he should not have been suspended. And I'm thinking, what do you mean he should not have been
No,
suspended?
he had to be.
Yeah, again, because of the nature of what he's accused of, JFF would have no other decision but to suspend him. And you also have to bear in mind that at that point, when the allegations was brought to light, you had other media outlets, The Guardian being one of them, that were picking up on the story.
International.
International, it was going global. MLS, I believe, put out a statement as well. So it's just like the federation, even without the allegation hitting the international market or Major League Soccer making a comment, the right thing to do, again, because he's working with young girls and women, the right decision to do is to suspend him. And you also have to look at that period, and it still exists now, where said subject, you can branch off and look at child molestation and rape in Jamaica, where so many young girls are going missing. Then it would have been heavily irresponsible of the federation not to show him a red card, whether that be a permanent suspension or not. But yeah, I definitely think that they made the right call in suspending him.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. I agree. I agree. They really and truly had no choice. It was because it wasn't even one. My thing is, honestly, the JFF should have never even hired him. If I mean they can't,
Formula. Before you can carry on with the conversation, and this is why I'm saying that Hall and Blaine offered transparency in their press conference, and I'm going to keep a keen eye to see just how much they enhance that transparency. Please explain to me what is the criteria or what measures the JFF take when recruiting head coaches or managers, because if he is proven to be guilty, then the spotlight then reverse and focus on the JFF, because did you not do your homework? Did you not
exactly,
do your DBS check? Did you check
exactly,
to see that he's fit enough to work with young girls and women?
exactly, exactly. I personally cannot speak, to the criteria because I'm not there and I don't know. Just picking up off of what, you know, things that individuals will say, individuals connected with the JFF. It seems to me that a lot of it has, monetary considerations are heavily taken into you know the consideration of choosing a coach. I think that's the main thing, to be honest with you. I think that each case, though, I think each scenario where a coach needs to be replaced or a new coach needs to be brought in, I think it has a different set of circumstances on a number of occasions. So it's especially with the JFFs, you know, issue of the monetary issues. I think it might be a little bit difficult for them to have a consistent, and then there's the whole issue of our local coaching needs to develop further as well. I think it's difficult to answer that question because you have to examine each situation, according to the respective variables that are at play in that particular situation. But I agree 100%. I mean, my God, man, this man was being accused from by multiple, not only one, multiple individuals
Hmm.
at one of his prior places of employment, right?
Damaging.
Of serious misconduct. The JFF should never have hired him in the first damn place. I mean, I mean, it has to be incompetence on their part. It has to be because look, we don't know whether the allegations are true or not, and I don't want to go down that part, And I don't. When I say that, I'm not victim blaming, right? I don't know if the allegations are true, right? But what I do know is that the allegations were made, and that is enough for the JFF to say, even if this guy's resume is glowing, even if this guy could really do well for the program, yo, what this will take place over, yes, sir. You get what I say? Like, no, we can't move forward with this bridging at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do understand how something as how an elephant crystal like that, like such a massive
In
elephant,
the room, right?
it had, you know what I think, and this is an opinion of mine. I don't want to be sued because Mr. Speed threatened me the other day on coach's desk, man. So I am being defamatory, right? And I wasn't, because I do have a legal background. So I know what to say and I know how to say it. But common sense tells me that it must have come across, it must have come to their attention. They could, there's no way you could do even a half decent amount of due diligence and not be exposed to that particular information. I don't get it. So is it a case, and I'm asking a question, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Is it a case that it was ignored? I mean, I know, when was Busby hired again? It was pre-me,
It's
me
funny
too.
because he was there at the last World Cup.
Mhm.
Yeah, he was there with Hugh Menzies. So let me go back and try and get up his exact date that he was with the
But I know attitudes have changed to this crystal.
yeah.
But on the flip side, if you have a decent moral persuasion, and I just do, even if it was pre me too, I just don't understand how you if you indeed came across information like this from the standpoint of just even protecting the girls and having the girls' best interest at heart, and like how do you expose them to this, if you knew, if you didn't know, how could you not know that? I
that
don't get
that
that.
is the big question. How could you not know? Heavy on the I don't even know if you can call it complacency, because I think that's too nice of a word. It's way too nice of a word. So this is why I said, yes. And it's quite interesting as well, because with that it pretty much says that there could be potential trouble that lies ahead, not just for the women's team, but also for the Reggae Boyz as well, because the spotlight will no doubt be flipped and the focus will go on the federation to say, how can you let something like that happen? Who knew? Who didn't know? When you found out, if you did find out, why did you turn a blind eye to it? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting time when those when the investigation comes to an end. But it's definitely not looking good at the moment for Busby and the federation.
Yeah, it's I mean, Vin Blaine, as you say, he was speaking as if he was going to be here for a while, and the same thing with Paul Hall as well. It was only revealed after by my crickets that Paul Hall would have a long-term role to play in the development of our nation's football, and I think that's brilliant. You can question his head coaching, his senior men's head coaching acumen all you want, but when it comes to development, the guy is top notch, right? And I think that's brilliant. But before the press conferences, the respective press conferences, we did not know that these guys were going to be on for on a long term basis. For both, many of us were of the opinion that it was going to be temporary. So I think many of us would have been pleasantly surprised watching the press conferences and just hearing these gentlemen speaking as if they're going to be here for quite some time.
What's interesting is that not a positive for you though, that they've come in and they're more focused on long-term gratification than the typical immediate gratification that we've seen recently? Because like I said, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it would be silly of you to come in and say this is what's going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think what you can give them credit for is, even if it is a short-term basis in terms of where the head coach position is concerned, bare minimum over the next set of months, the bare minimum that they're looking to do is at least build a foundation for either themselves to build on or for their successor to build on.
I mean, it sounds good in theory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt their ability to implement it. I doubt the supporting mechanisms in place.
Yes.
And by supporting mechanisms, I think we all know who the main supporting mechanism is, who
Yeah.
should be the main facilitator
Yeah.
of this restructuring or this refocusing, or I mean, Paul Hall was even using words like overhaul, right? I mean, we all know, the struggles with the current, administration. So hopefully, they can provide these respective gentlemen with the respective tools to. Why are you laughing? I
I'm
mean,
smiling because you're touching on stuff that just makes perfect sense. You just hitting the nail on the head. You touched on like overhaul, and I'm laughing because I'm thinking to myself, JFF, you might have intentionally put some nails in your own coffins
I don't.
because
Yes,
because
crystal. Yes, yes, yeah. Crystal music to my ears. Just please continue.
because what they have done is they have gone and recruited two head coaches who, for me, are singing from the same hymn sheet in terms of wanting better for their nation and wanting better for their players. And we've not seen that. I've not seen a situation where both head coaches or both managers from the men's team and the women's team are pretty much saying this is what we want. One voice fits all. Paul Hall as well, I noticed that he was touching on the Reggae Girlz, and I knew that that was sincere because he didn't do it once or twice; he did it a number of times. So not only was he is he planning for grassroots and developing grassroots football, he's saying what's going on the women's team. So when problem arise, and problem will arise because no federation is perfect. I kind of feel like Paul Hall will get the backing of Vin Blaine. Vin Blaine will get the backing of Paul Hall, and so on. So I'm saying, JFF, you probably have unintentionally put the nail in your own coffin.
Crystal, that is brilliant. That is, you just took a sledgehammer and just swing a sledgehammer. I mean, look, when talk about hitting the nail on the head, and you know what strikes me about these two gentlemen? Both of them seem to be no nonsense sort of individuals.
100%.
They seem to be individuals, as I said, firm, fair, reasonable, rational, right? Are diplomatic and nice when they need to be.
Yeah.
But when it's time to, get the work done, it's time to get the work done. And they don't strike me as individuals that would be too patient with the JFF's alleged shenanigans, right? And when I hear Paul Hall using words like overhaul, I mean, surely the JFF cannot be on board with such strong language. I mean, that would just be just that's just totally again. I mean, they have their set in their ways, they have their own culture. Overhaul. What is this guy Paul Hall talking about? Right? I mean, I don't see how he's going to go about doing that overhaul, right? And because I think that especially on both sides, both for the girls and the boys, because the federation is responsible for both. Obviously, there has to be a massive, massive shakeup, and it's at every level. Administratively, the whole footballing landscape, the footballing structure. I think I am of the opinion, I don't want to sound too radical, but I'm of the opinion that our footballing structure is so flawed, it needs to be completely torn down and rebuilt. I know some people would disagree with that. They might think there's a solid foundation in place that we can build on. I respectfully disagree. I think the whole structure needs to be torn down. So when and Paul Hall, when he spoke about the top countries in football in the world and how they, in order to get to those respective, get to that place where they are now, at some point in time in their footballing history, there was a massive overhaul. Now, if that's the type of, or if it's the type of overhaul that I'm thinking that Paul Hall is thinking, I just don't see how that is in the JSS best interest in terms of when you look at it seems inconsistent to the way the JFF operate and what they believe is in their best interest.
Absolutely spot on formula. This is why I said, guys, I had to go for the right person, the formula, to dissect what formula Paul Hall and Vin Blaine is trying to deliver and give us. And for us, I think it's for us to keep our ears peeled, watch and listen carefully, read between the lines with what Paul Hall and Vin Blaine is saying. We shouldn't expect neither to come out and say get rid of the federation, but like formula says, Paul Hall used keyword overhaul, right? So it's up to us to say that even if it's not pleasing for JFF to hear that, it's down to us to enhance that, dissect that, and support Paul Hall's decision and be the best 12th man that he needs us to be. Just kind of like be a pillar to him and to say that yeah, we're supporting you, and with that support, again, results will be taken into consideration. But I think more so for us, how he's going to get the bulk of the support is the style of play. He's saying that he wants Jamaica to play not fancy football, flamboyant football. Music to my ears. He said that they players should be a reflection of the country, the culture. So when you're playing football, it looks like you're dancing. Absolutely right. That's how they should be playing. And this is where we come in as the 12th man when Paul Hall is using words like overhaul. That's where we said that I'm gonna look past if we don't qualify for the World Cup, because you were telling me that you want
Yeah.
long term gratification. So that's where we come in as the 12th man, and I just hope that we're not blinded to it and we do give Paul Hall the 100 support that he needs.
You know, Crystal, you're raising some massive points because if Paul Hall in this particular 6 game window, right? Even if the results are not, I think the results will improve. I think, matters on field, matters pertaining to on field would look a bit more structured, a bit more organized, right? So I think we'll definitely right off the bat see an improvement, right? But even if it's a case where the hole was too deep and we can't get ourselves out, if Paul Hall shows in this 6 game window a vast improvement on what the previous gaffer would have done, and we actually look like we know what we're doing on the football pitch, the 12th man will be in Paul Hall's corner, and we will be fighting in that particular corner, and that would be trouble for the JFF. Because it's one thing for Paul Hart, he would be more in a position to be able to demand certain things, because the fans are always against the JFF, truth be told. But Tapper never had this, would not have had, if that happens, Tapper would not have had the support that Paul Hall would have, and I think
Mhm.
that would even be more problematic for the JFF.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that's what I'm saying, guys. Again, formula hit the nail on the head there, and I just hope that you guys pay attention to what our head coaches are saying, because like I said, they're singing from the same hymn sheet. So what are we saying? Now is not the time for us to be divided or continue to be divided, because if we are divided, we will fall apart. Together, we will no doubt conquer. And if they're saying that they need the 12th man, if the head coaches are saying they need us, then let's go to them and be the best 12th man. Again, I've said this on a few of my live stream. You saw our vice captain, Damian Lowe, saying that he needs you. He didn't verbally say he needs you, but in the game against the USA, at one point he had his hands like that, looking at the fans, basically saying, be louder. That's basically him saying that we need you on board, because you can never ever underestimate the power of the 12th man.
Yeah. It helps to provide a certain level of legitimacy, right? When the 12th man is on your side, and I think that legitimacy can be a great source of power.
Definitely. Before we go, I want to ask if you think a overhaul, a complete reshuffle from the top is possible, because I think that's the best way for us to truly move forward and not necessarily turn a new page, but go for a new book off the shelf, one that could aid our development. You think a new a complete reshuffle is possible or likely to happen?
I'm seeing signs of it. I'm seeing signs of it that the JFF is aware. The current administration, I think, with the inclusion of individuals like Dennis Strong and Rudolph Speed and individuals like that, individuals that, especially for Rudolph Speed, he is versed in, matters pertaining to football, both on the pitch and off. He has a very good idea of how things should look. And, a man like Dennis Strong is, a stalwart in the business sector. So I'm seeing signs of like the JFF is heading into that direction. How much the likes of a Mike Ricketts and a Dalton will be willing, how far will they be willing to go from what they have been used to for decades now, right? What they have grown accustomed to, how far they are willing to deviate from that is, the big question. Hopefully, they're willing to make a complete 180-degree turn and start heading in the opposite direction. But I admittedly, I am seeing signs of a more progressive-minded Jamaica Football Federation. I think it just all comes down to the attitudes of the older heads, or the ones who have been there, the upper echelon, so to speak, the one that are really calling the shot. It's just a case of how far are they willing to move with the times. But I see changes. I see indications that they are they are aware
Mm-hmm.
that we really need to be heading in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the indicators could be, the bringing on the likes of Paul Hall and Vin Blaine. But it would be really and you know what's so crazy though, Crystal? It's not only about how far they are willing to go as well, but
Mm.
it's also about how capable are they
Yes. Yes.
to facilitate a
Yes.
complete 180-degree U-turn. I think that's a very very important aspect to it as well. Their capacity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's definitely interesting times ahead. There's no doubts about that. I think I know my answer to the next question that I'm going to ask you before I allow you to leave. But are you a fan? Are you a fan of, I say us, that includes everybody, whether that be players, head coaches, backroom staff, content creators, everybody. Are you a fan of us airing out our dirty laundry? Because it's quite obvious that at least one of the head coaches is completely, completely against that.
Yeah. I think there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah,
I think that there are times when I think a question like that, it has to be examined on the
yeah,
merits of the respective case. I think that there are times when it is good from an accountability standpoint and,
yes,
effecting change. But then there are other times when it's best that it is, at least the attempt is made to deal with it, behind. I don't think it's everything you should be running to the public with, best you try and deal with it behind closed doors. But, there's a perfect example of how, you know, airing the laundry, the dirty laundry in public can affect change. And I think everybody will know what I'm going to be referring to. And that's the whole tape gate
mm.
with Damian Lowe, that leaked
Oh
conversation
yeah, oh yeah,
with the
yeah,
federation.
yeah,
I think in it was a massive disruption at the time,
mm.
but I think that I wouldn't say I've seen a shift, right, in
Mm.
how the JFF is trying to go about. I think it was embarrassing, and I think I think even because you see the thing about it, even when sponsors hear that now, sponsors are like, damn, you know, Prezi, this not really look good. And you see the thing is Prezi is no longer in a situation to, say, oh, no man, those are just rumors, those are just allegations. Right? Sponsor are watching us watch the and a listen and I say, yo, Prezi, me not like what me I hear. You
Mhm.
can't go around the thing anymore. So I think it forced the JFF to implement some level of change. And I think in the long run it proved to be a positive. There was a bit of a shake up, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's quite interesting. It's difficult to measure when it is necessary to air out your dirty laundry. I think to an extent it is necessary, but I also think we need to tread carefully because I've always said that you do not, in the sense of wanting to recruit players from overseas, the well-established players from overseas, or the promising players from overseas, if you are leaving your back door and your front door wide open and airing out your dirty laundry, do you really think that they're going to want to come on board? Because they're going to be looking at it from a professional standpoint where they're so used to things being done at a high level. They're going to be looking at you and think that you are a big joke and I don't want to get myself involved with that. Not saying I'm in favor of setting up anyone for failure, setting up anyone for disruptions. I'm just saying I want the best players available to us to come on board. And with that, I do think that at times, like you said, we need to just measure up when it is appropriate for us to say certain things publicly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. You know, it would also be interesting to see, Paul Hall and Vin Blaine's tolerance level for the foolishness. I know they would want to be professional, but especially, the passion that I know these two gentlemen have for the respective program. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if JFF drive them to the edge and say, you know what, observer, they need to hear this, because I'm tired of JFF right now. So it would be interesting to see their tolerance level for the shenanigans for sure.
I think that their tolerance level is high. I don't know them personally, but they seem like they have a high tolerance. But I think you have to look at the defense and think to yourself, are they prepared for what's about to come their way? Because I don't think this is a case where you have the puppet and the master. You might be masters, but these two that you have recruited are not going to be your puppets. That's just
Yeah.
my observation of them. Obviously, that waits to see. We can make a judgment call maybe sometime down the line, perhaps in the summer when they should have settled into their role and results should be obvious for us to see in terms of full-time results and what we're seeing on the field of play as well.
Yeah, I agreed, 100% agreed.
And finally, I have to ask you one more time, what was your key takeaway from that press conference? It could be one line from either press conference. If you go with Paul Hall, I could easily go with Vin Blaine.
All right. So as I said, the Vin Blaine press conference was just the usual for me where the Reggae Girls is concerned. So I'd more go with the Paul Hall press conference because it was more, you know, distinct in terms of, it was just a complete difference, complete 180. I just think the emphasis on the direction that Jamaica's football needs to go. I think that's what really stood out for me where the Paul Hall press conference was concerned again. When I heard that, I was okay, we were both on the Paul Hall press conference. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to be on the Vin Blaine one, but when I was sitting in the chair and when I heard the word overall, like me literally jump, like me say, what? Yo, what that Paul Hall just say? Because me I hear revolution in a man. Like me I hear a changing of the guard in a man. So I think that's really and truly what really stood out for me, where the Parallel press conference was just a clear indication. It sounds to me that it was well thought out, probably even well planned out, right, with a very good understanding of the current Jamaican footballing landscape, right? So I think just all of his comments where the direction of our program is concerned is very much refreshing to hear. And also, you know, just how the level of depth in the presenting his idea as to how you would like to play, which is something we never really heard from the previous gaffer.
Interesting. I'm liking what you've said. I'll touch on Vin Blaine. And I think it was perhaps his closing remarks that stood out of that press conference for me in terms of the long-term planning. He said, and this is where I touched on the 12th man, paraphrasing, Vin Blaine said that he's looking support from everyone. He says that he has a fantastic team. But one thing, aside from the fact that he's looking long term to bring homegrown players back into the team. I think that's a massive, massive plus. Long term planning. He also ended and saying that we're going to the World Cup. Those were his words, guys, not mine. And he said that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is the World Cup. We're going to the World Cup, and that was music to my ears because I'm saying yes, I do believe in the team, but this is a head coach who's coming on an interim basis, but also he is clearly booming with confidence.
Yeah, Vin Blaine did also mention about the league, the women's league,
Yeah,
in terms of getting. I think that stood out to me as well personally in the Vin Blaine press conference, getting the women's league, the local women's league back up and running.
yeah.
Even if Barbie can continue to wipe the floor with everybody in the league,
Mm.
right, and dropping 20 nil every week, it's still important to have a national league, up a women's league up and running. And he really and truly plays significant emphasis on generating support for women's football in the country. I think women's, and even again, even me, I think, Jamaicans need to start really jumping on board with women's football and embracing women's football. I mean, even I think as I'm noticing a shift in the way how world football is viewing women's football. There was a time where the emphasis, a lot of it was placed solely on international women's football. But I see even club football now, women's club football, really getting a massive highlight. Clubs are focusing a lot more now on their women's teams. Right? Sometimes I'm looking at, like Instagram pages and stuff like that of respective football clubs, and I'm seeing more content on the women's program than I am seeing on even the men's program, and the men's program might have even some superstars in the dressing room. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that we need to not let women's football get away from us. You see, the men's football got away from us. We qualified for 98, and the gap kind of widened after that between us and the rest of the world. We couldn't keep up, we couldn't keep abreast. Women's football is still, it's young, right? It's not as mature in terms of the respective structures in respective jurisdictions across the world. And I think we need to capitalize on as quickly as possible, get out in front and establish ourselves as one of the top nations in women's football. I think we definitely have the talent to do it.
We 100% have the talent to do exactly that, and I believe firmly believe in the Reggae Girls. I do think that they will qualify for the next women's World Cup, and I think unlike the men's side, I don't think we're going to see that almost 3 decades gap where they fail to qualify for the World Cup, right? Because I do think that not only do we have the talent there, but I think the program is slightly better. And it's weird because they get, maybe you could say, arguably they are disrespected twice as much as the men's team, because the whole idea of not, buying into women's football, corporate Jamaica not solely buying into women's football as well, the lack of sincere, I guess you could call it, support from the top as well. So yeah, that could be the reason why I think that's going to be a positive for the women's team, because they should, or they will be using that as motivation to say, not only are we going to prove you wrong, but we're going to do it in superb fashion as well. Blaine did touch on the homegrown talent, and he actually also made that comparison with Khadija Shaw and Jodie Brown in terms of developing women's football from Jamaica's standpoint. So whether that be getting the local league up and running again, and then from there getting scholarships for the girls to go overseas. So there's definitely exciting times ahead with the Reggae Girls. But like I said, trust and I believe that they will no doubt qualify for the next Women's World Cup.
Yeah, agreed. I have high hopes, and I think as long as Sidela Marley continues to have a high tolerance level for beer, I think once Sidela continues to have a high tolerance level with BS, I think our women's national program is really heading in a positive direction.
Yeah, definitely. Formula, I'm surprised that it's actually taken so long for me and you to sit down. I don't think it's ever happened before, not even by chance on other panelist conversation. It's weird.
I think we have been on one stream.
Really?
Yeah, I think we're on coach's desk one time. If
Oh
memory
my
serves me right, coach had to jump off. I don't remember the reason, and I kind of took
yes.
over. It was a
Yes.
post match
Yes.
press conference.
You're right. That was I think that was around Gold Cup time, right?
Was it Gold Cup? Yeah, I think it might have been. I think it was after. Was it the US game?
It might,
I don't
I
remember.
feel like
Yeah,
it was around Gold Cup time,
yeah,
because I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
think, if my memory serves me well, I don't recall like speaking to you like on a panelist conversation
yeah, yeah, yeah.
during so far the World Cup qualifiers. But yeah, it's been refreshing speaking to you. Like I said, guys, I had to go and get the formula to dissect this one for me, because it felt quite fitting, and I am quite pleased that I did that, because I definitely believe that I made the right call. It was a refreshing conversation, and like I said, guys, he is so knowledgeable, fair and open, and quite respectable as well with the way he puts forth his comments. So I hope that you have all enjoyed listening to us. And Formula, what's your final words?
No, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. Honestly, man. I mean, you yourself, you're very knowledgeable, very versed, right? I mean, you're very good at what you do.
Thank
Let's just put it at that. So, it was a pleasure being here, to be honest with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, man. And anytime, man, you can just reach out to me once I'm available, man. I'm good to go, man. It was really a pleasure, really good, really constructive, discussion.
Thank you. Before you go, Formula, I'm just gonna like keep you backstage just for maybe a moment, maybe 1 minute or so. But before you go, where can people find you on socials?
So it's the Formula Sports on Instagram. I just set up the Twitter. It's the Formula Sports on Twitter as well. I haven't put out anything on Twitter as yet, but I do, I am a bit active on Instagram. So you guys can find me there. And of course, my YouTube channel. I'm assuming, hopefully, Formula Sports. So it's the Formula Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube.
There you go, guys. So please do go ahead and check him out. Also, do not forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button over on Formula Sports YouTube channel as well, and across all his social media. Please do give him a follow. It is well worth it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed listening to us, and I do hope to see you again on another live stream. Until next time, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.